Welcome to Arrow Rock, home of Missouri's oldest state historic site. Located in Saline County, the site preserves and interprets remnant features of a 19th century Missouri river town, reminding us of a time when the Missouri River was the water highway of the American West. But long before the arrival of settlers and pioneers, Native American tribes and European explorers used the Arrow Rock Bluff as a landmark. Stretching intermittently for nearly 5 miles, this flint-bearing Burlington limestone bluff was first recorded on a French map in 1732 as the Pierre à Flèche, literally meaning Rock of Arrows. Explorer Stephen Long explained the origin of the name in 1819.
Arrow Rock is so called from its having been formerly resorted to by neighboring Indians for the stone used to point their arrows.
In the early 1800s, a series of events occurred that would thrust this region into the national spotlight. In 1803, President Thomas Jefferson purchased the vast Louisiana Territory from France, doubling the size of the United States. Wanting to know more about the lands he had just purchased, Jefferson sent Meriwether Lewis and William Clark to explore this new territory and find a route to the Pacific Ocean. On their epic journey, they recorded seeing the Arrow Rock Bluff and numerous salt springs nearby. These salt springs were known as licks because wildlife such as deer, bison, and elk licked the ground around them to obtain salt. The largest of these licks was the Boone's Lick, operated by Nathan Boone and his brother Daniel, sons of the famous frontiersman Daniel Boone. They came to the region in 1805 and began manufacturing salt. Records indicate that they could boil enough of the briny water to produce 25 to 30 bushels of salt a day, which were then shipped to St. Louis. Salt was an important commodity in frontier times for preserving food and tanning leather, and the area became known as the Boone's Lick country. The site of this early salt-making industry is now preserved in Boone's Lick State Historic Site. Originally a short ferry ride across the river, the road to the site now travels through the historic towns of Boonville or Glasgow. By 1810, the fertile river bottoms, as well as an abundance of timber, wild game, and salt licks, were attracting hundreds of settlers from Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia. The Boone's Lick was the westernmost American settlement at that time, and nearly 100 miles beyond the next closest settlement. U.S. government trader George C. Sibley built a blockhouse at the Arrow Rock Bluff to carry on trade with the Osage Indians after Fort Osage, near present-day Independence, was abandoned during the War of 1812. However, the Sauk, Fox, and Iowa Indians, allies of Great Britain during the war, soon forced the settlers to retreat to forts for protection. The largest of these forts was Cooper's Fort, located in the river bottoms across from the Arrow Rock Bluff. The largest military campaign in the area occurred in 1814, when Missouri Rangers, friendly Shawnee Scouts, and Boone's Lick Militia under the command of Colonel Henry Dodge captured 152 Miami Indians. Raids by other Indian tribes continued, though, until the signing of peace treaties in 1850. The way was now open for a great migration. In St. Charles, Baptist missionary John Mason Peck wrote,
"Some families came in the spring of 1815, but in the winter, spring, summer, and autumn of 1816, they came like an avalanche. It seemed as though Kentucky and Tennessee were breaking up and moving to the far west. Caravan after caravan passed over the prairies of Illinois, all bound to the Boone's Lick."
By 1850, several river ferries were in operation near the Arrow Rock. Towns literally sprang up in the wilderness overnight. By 1819, Franklin, located about 12 miles downstream, was second in size only to St. Louis and was the hub of social, political, and economic activity in the Boonslick country. On September 1st, 1821, William Beckman and a small party of men left Franklin and crossed the Missouri River near the Arrow Rock Ferry. 3 months and over 800 miles later, they reached Santa Fe, New Mexico. The following year, Beckman, now known as the father of the Santa Fe Trail, led a wagon train from Missouri to Santa Fe. Soon, caravans were heading west with cloth and iron goods that would be traded for mules, furs, and Mexican silver. Many of the principal traders in those days were citizens of Boonslick country, and one of the first stops for the wagons heading west was the Big Spring, now in Arrow Rock State Historic Site. By 1828, floods had eroded the banks of the Missouri River and washed away most of Franklin. Some of the buildings were moved further away from the river to the town of New Franklin. The remainder of Franklin's pre-1828 buildings slipped into the river the following year. Meanwhile, a completely new town was laid out high on the bluff above the Arrow Rock Ferry crossing, just about at the place which, in 1808, William Clark had identified as a handsome spot for a town. Originally named Philadelphia, in 1833, the Missouri legislature changed the name of the town to Arrow Rock to coincide with the more famous landmark. Some aspects of life in 19th century Arrow Rock were extremely harsh. Slavery was a fact of life in the region, and the ever-growing southern migration continued to add to the African-American population of the town. Slave artisans built many of Arrow Rock's structures, and African-Americans were the major source of labor during the Santa Fe Trail and steamboat eras. Their skills and labor created much of the wealth and leisure enjoyed by their owners in the town. Tradition holds that the front step of the Houston Tavern, located on Main Street, was used as an auction block for the sale of slaves. Town ordinances restricted black social activities, and an 1847 act of the town board specified that
any Negro away from home after 10 o'clock at night without a pass shall receive a whipping not to exceed 10 lashes.
despite such cruelties, local slaves found ways to develop a distinctive culture using religious services and recreational activities to create a sense of solidarity. Arrow Rock streets were often filled with rowdy and drunken boatmen and teamsters. Horse racing in the streets became a menace and had to be outlawed. Civic leader Dr. Matthew Hall built this Greek revival home in 1846, but moved into the country in 1857, citing the need to remove his family from the evil influence of a river town. Ironically, the town's one-room stone jail, built in 1873, reportedly never held a prisoner. Medical knowledge was limited, and most patients were treated by bleeding or purging and puking them, a cure sometimes worse than the illness. Plagues such as cholera and anthrax also periodically struck the town, killing dozens of people at a time. The proximity of the Missouri River meant that nearly everyone suffered with bouts of malarial fever, known as the shaking ague, one of the major medical diseases of the day. Among the township's residents was Dr. John Sappington, who perfected and mass-marketed quinine to treat malarial fever. His anti-fever pill became the frontier's most famous prescription. His paper on treating malaria with quinine was the first published medical treatise west of the Mississippi River. In 1844, Sappington's son, William, built Prairie Park, a Greek revival home just outside the town. Dr. Sappington spent the last few years of his life there. Sappington left a political dynasty that included 3 Missouri governors: Meredith Miles Marmaduke, Claiborne Fox Jackson, and John Sappington Marmaduke. With the exception of John Marmaduke, these men and their families are buried in the Sappington Cemetery State Historic Site, 5 miles southwest of Arrow Rock. Arrow Rock's most famous resident was George Caleb Bingham, known as the Missouri Artist. Bingham built a federal-style house in Arrow Rock in 1837, from where he painted many of the gentry, as well as river scenes and depictions of daily pioneer life. His sketches and paintings graphically illustrate the political practices of Missouri's early days of statehood and are increasingly accepted as a record of 19th century frontier life. His house has been preserved as part of Arrow Rock State Historic Site and is designated as a National Historic Landmark. Arrow Rock was flourishing by mid-century, serving as the seat of Saline County government in 1839 and 1840. The county seal reflected the importance of the Salt Licks in the early history of the Boone's Lick country. In 1834, Virginian Joseph Houston built a 2-story brick structure on the main street of town. By 1840, he added a general store and ballroom and was widely known as a hotel keeper. The Academy boarding house was the dormitory of the Arrow Rock Female Seminary, where young ladies learned domestic skills and studied the arts in the 1840s and 50s. Both the Santa Fe Trail and the Missouri River ensured prosperity for the town. Many travelers heading west passed through Arrow Rock either along the trail or on steamboats, those temperamental queens of the river that risked sandbars, sunken logs, and boiler explosions to carry cargo and passengers. Arrow Rock's waterfront district, now marshland and cottonwood forest, was once the economic heart of the town. Hemp, used to make ropes for tying cotton bales, was Missouri's most important cash crop, and in 1860, Saline County was shipping 18% of Missouri's hemp, almost 3,547 tons. Most of it passed through Arrow Rock. By 1860, Arrow Rock had a population of over 1,000, and its future prosperity appeared certain. But that would soon change. By April of 1861, America was at war with itself. Though Arrow Rock was not the site of major Civil War battles, as were the nearby towns of Boonville, Glasgow, and Lexington, the town did suffer the ravages of guerrilla warfare. Murder, pillaging, and wanton destruction of property was commonplace. Arrow Rock's vibrant economy, which had centered on the large tobacco and hemp plantations, ground to a halt. With slavery abolished by 1865, the black population of Arrow Rock grew. Black schools, churches, and fraternal organizations were established in the area north of High Street. Soon, African Americans made up nearly half of Arrow Rock's population. This ratio would continue until the 1950s. Many blacks found work as domestics, cooks, and laborers. But even with this increase in population, Arrow Rock's economy could not fully recover after the war. Soon, other factors signaled the decline of the town. The large plantations were broken up into smaller yeoman farms. River commerce was soon replaced by railroads, which bypassed the town. The changing course of the Missouri River eventually left the town high and dry. In 1873, a fire leveled the business district, and another catastrophic fire occurred in 1901. Young men, black and white alike, began seeking work in the larger cities of St. Louis and Kansas City. At the turn of the century, Arrow Rock was in a state of decay. In 1912, the Daughters of the American Revolution took an interest in the Houston Tavern because of its association with the Santa Fe Trail. They established a museum room there as a means of teaching Missouri history to the passerby. In 1923, the state legislature purchased and undertook preservation of the tavern, the first building in Missouri to be preserved with public funds. The tavern now functions as a museum and restaurant, continuing to serve hearty country-style meals in its time-honored tradition. In 1926, the state acquired about 30 acres south of town, as well as the one-room stone jail. Over the years, several other historic structures, including the Academy Boarding House, George Caleb Bingham's residence, and the Hall House, were added to the state property. In 1959, the Friends of Arrow Rock Incorporated was formed to preserve buildings outside the historic site boundaries. Its first project was to restore and furnish the long building known as the Old Courthouse, a popular site for visitors. After restoration, the Friends groups donated the property to the state and today continues to work closely with the Missouri Department of Natural Resources in interpreting and preserving Arrow Rock's history. Guided walking tours of historic buildings are available, and over 2,000 Missouri school children benefit annually from educational programs. A visitor center constructed on the historic site provides museum exhibits and helps orient visitors to the area. Modern camping facilities, picnic sites, a hiking trail, and small fishing lake are available on the grounds of the historic site. Improvements to the historic site and ongoing preservation of the facility are made possible by the 0.1% Parks and Soils sales tax. The town hosts numerous artisans, cultural events, and activities throughout the year. The Lyceum Theater, originally built in 1872 as a Baptist church, produces professional plays and musicals each summer and fall. Many antique shops and craft shops are open year-round, as are bed and breakfast establishments. A 19th century craft festival attracts thousands of visitors each October, and a Juneteenth celebration commemorating African American freedom is held every other year at the state historic site. Today, Arrow Rock is home to 70 people, and its manicured lawns and well-kept houses scarcely hint at its turbulent past. But its red brick buildings, historic tavern, gunsmith shop, one-room jail, and other buildings are reminders of the time when the town's main street was part of the Santa Fe Trail, and its citizens helped shape both state and national history. The town has been designated a National Historic Landmark and represents the cooperation of individuals, private organizations, and state agencies, working to preserve and interpret our history and provide recreational opportunities in a safe, pleasing environment. Enjoy your visit as you step back in time to Missouri's frontier days.